Good evening. So today I am going to discuss odds ratio. The odds ratio is the measure of association for a control study. It quantifies the relationship between a exposure such as eating a food or attending an event, and a disease in a case control study. For a probability phi of a success, the odds are to be defined to be omega cap, capi- capital omega, which is equal to pi by 1 minus pi. And odd ratio, the odds are non-negative Now for 2 cross 2 table, suppose for this is for group 1, this is group 2. Yes, Nirmallo, good evening. Please tell your friend to join. Group 1, group 2, and this is success and failure. For group 1, success probability denoted by pi 1, and obviously the failure should be 1 minus pi 1. Similarly, for group 2 is pi 2, 1 minus pi 2 is a failure probability for group 2. So then the odds for group 1, I denote this by omega 1, which is equal to pi 1 by 1 minus pi 1. Similarly, for group 2, omega 2, the odds for group 2, that is pi 2 by 1 minus pi 2. So the ratio of the odds omega 1 and omega 2 in the two rows denoted by theta, which is called odd ratio. So this is equal to pi 1 by 1 minus pi 1, pi 2, 1 minus pi 2. So this should be pi 1 into 1 minus pi 2, pi 2, 1 minus pi 1. So this omega 1 is called odds of success instead of failure. And this is called odds of success instead of failure within row 2, and this is within row 1. And so this is for 2 cross 2 table. Omega 1 is the odds of success instead of failure within row 1, and omega 2 is the odds of success instead of failure within row 2. Therefore, odd ratio denoted by theta, which is equal to omega 1 by omega 2. This is equal to pi 1 into 1 minus pi 2 by pi 2 into 1 minus pi 1. So this is called the odds ratio. Now for joint distribution, with cell probability, cell probabilities pi ij, so that is represented by pi 1 1, pi 1 2, pi 2 1, pi 2 2. That means for case control study, this is for case, suppose and this is exposed, that means suppose I consider ice cream, then this these are exposed, that means if you eat ice cream, then this is the case and this is control, and this one is not exposed, that is did not eat ice cream. Cases means that the this case, this is a one group and control is another group. Among the this case group, pi 1 1 is a probability corresponding those who eat ice cream, and pi 2 1 is who do not eat ice cream. Okay, and so this is the joint probability distributions. So it should be pi 1 naught marginal total, which is nothing but a pi 1 1. You know this thing, and this is pi 2 naught, pi 2 1 plus pi 2 2, and pi naught 1, which is equal to pi 1 1 plus pi 2 1, pi naught 2, pi 1 1 plus pi 2 2. Okay, so for joint probability with cell probability pi ij, then odds then omega I is the odds, which is equal to for I group, which is equal to pi I1 by pi I2. Just look at this thing. So that is, this means for omega 1 exposed group, then this, suppose I consider the effect, that is cases, as a success, then pi 1 1 is a success probability for that group, and failure should be pi 1 2. And similarly omega 2, which is equal to pi 2 1 success by failure under not exposed group. So therefore the odds ratio which is denoted by theta is nothing but a omega 1 by omega 2. So that means pi 1 1 by pi 1 2 pi 2 1 by pi 2 2, which is equal to pi 1 1 pi 2 2 pi 1 2 pi 2 1. So just look at the table. This is the formula. So this portion, denominator portion, is nothing but a, if you look at this formula, is nothing but a this pi 1 1 pi 2 2. Our numerator is this one. So this is the formula for odds ratio. Okay. So therefore, because this cross product, so odd ratio also called, this is also, hence this odds ratio is also called cross product ratio. Okay. So instead of using pi 1 1 pi 1 2, if, if there is a only cell frequency, and we already denoted this cell frequency by nij. So for n11 for cases and exposed group, and this is not exposed, control. So this is simply, if you look at this formula, pi ij is nothing but a nij by capital small n, where capital N, sorry, capital N is the total frequency. That means n11, n12, n plus n21 plus n22. So this means the odds ratio theta, again nothing but a, if in terms of nij we can write this as n11 n21 22 divided by n21 n12. Okay. So in that way you can write this thing. So suppose I consider a case control study example. In May 2005, the Kent country health department in Michigan was notified of an outbreak of vomiting and diarrhea. following a company lunch on lunch included submarine sandwich, submarine sandwiches catered by a local restaurant an estimated 200 person attended the luncheon. 55 attendees become ill. So therefore, we need to perform a case control study for this. A case control study was conducted. That means among this is the case patient, 200 person who attended the luncheon and 55 attendees become ill. So after this case control study, we observed that 53 of 54 case patient and 33 of 40 control control group. This is not from the case patient. This is the fresh one. Okay. So controls reported eating lettuce in their submarine sandwich. So the we can represent this as 2 by 2 table as this is case, this is control, those who eating lettuce. I denote this lattice. Okay. So Those who expose means those who eat lettuce, and those who did not eat lettuce, not exposed. So among under the case patient, we see that 53 who eat lettuce and one do not eat. So under the total number of case patients should be 54, and the control 33 eat lettuce and 47 did not, and the total control patient is 40. So therefore, and the total number of exposed patient is 86, and this is 8, and the total number of patient is 94. Hence, odds equal to 53 into 7, odds ratio is equal to 53 into 7 divided by 33 into 1. So which is equal to 11.2. So therefore, the odds ratio for lettuce was 11.2. This means the odds of having eaten lettuce were 11 times, approximately 11 times higher among case patient than control. Now, so we observe that the odds lies between any positive non-negative, any non-negative quantity. So you note that an odds ratio of 1 or close to 1 indicates that the odds of exposure among case patients are same as or similar to the odds of exposure among control. The exposure is not associated with disease. An odds ratio greater than 1 indicates that the odds of exposure among case patients are are greater than to the odds of exposure among control. The here since the odds of exposure among case patient are greater than the odds of exposure among control, this means the exposure might be a risk factor for the disease. So here we see that theta is 11.2 for this example and it is greater than 1, so we can say that lattice is a risk factor for disease. So here we can add this line, lattice might be a risk factor for illness after the luncheon. So now what do you mean by the risk factor? What do you mean by the risk factor? Risk factor some things that increase, something that increases a person's chances of developing a disease. For example, cigarette cigarette smoking is a risk factor for lung cancer. Similarly, obesity is a risk factor for heart attack. And third point, an odds ratio less than 1 indicates that the odds of exposure among case patient are less than to the odds of exposure among control. The exposure might be protective factor against disease. So, what do you mean by protective factor? Protective factor are conditions or attributes in individuals or families, individual families, communities, or larger society being that mitigate or the eliminate risks thereby increasing the health and well-being of children and family. So, in the example, suppose I consider an example. This is case ice cream. I want to check whether ice cream is a risk factor or protective factor. So, suppose this is a exposed group. After case control study, we see that exposed group who eat ice cream, that is 13, and not exposed who did not eat ice cream, under case study, that is 17, and the control exposed is 32 and 23 not exposed. Then the odds ratio theta, which is equal to 13 into 23 divided by 17 into 32, which is approximately 0.55. So that means since it is less than 1, it is protective factor. So ice cream here is a protective factor. Ice cream here is a protective factor. Okay. So note that so one thing I can mention here, that is odds ratio. This odds ratio greater than 1, this means indicates indicates actually control group means Shayok, those those are not actually, for this example I think it is better to explain via this example. Here we see that after lunch on 55 attendees among 55 attendees among 200 attendees become ill. So here 55 is the control. So not 55 is a case and control is those who are not ill. Okay. Now I consider from this 55 attendees those who ill after taking lunch on. I consider among these 55 attendees, 55 or 54. because when we start a study, someone is not interested for performing this experiment. So we have a 54 case patient who I because we have a information they are ill taking lunch on, that is taking submarine sandwich. Okay, so and I interest because I know latex l- used in sandwich. I think this may be the factor for diarrhea and vomiting. So I do not know, is it the risk factor or not. So that's why I consider 54, taking 54 attendee those who ill and taking 40 other attendee who is not facing such thing before. This is called control. And after taking submarine sandwich and where we use lattice, and we see that this 54 attendee those who ill, again 53 take lattice and one does not. And among 40 control groups, those who are not ill, 33 take lattice, 7 does not. Okay, so control means where we do not, actually control means where we do not use any external factor. For example, suppose in the, you have a two groups. One group you use drug, and because you want, suppose in your study you want to see the effect of drug, so you use one group which containing N1 patient and another group which containing N2 patient, and this N1 patient and N2 patient in homogeneous in nature according to their age. Suppose I consider same sex, that is I only consider N1 plus N2 male, and I restrict age also, and other physical things, they all are almost similar. And one group, that is the group G G1, I use drug, and another group I did not use anything, and after 6 months I observe the effect of G1 G2. This G1 group is called case, and another G2 where we do not use any drug, this is called control group. Okay, so clear, Sayo? Please tell me. Sayo, are you hearing me? Is it clear for you? Control group where we do not use anything. Okay, and here in that example, control means where we have it, those patient, I consider those attendees who have a no diarrhea and vomiting before that. Yes, control study. Okay, thank you, sir. So here we see that this example, theta is 0.55 less than 1, so this is ice cream should be a protective factor. One more thing I want to note, that is the note, the magnitude of the odds ratio is called the strength of the association. The further away an odds ratio is from 1.0, the more likely it is that the relationship between the exposure and the disease is causal. For example, the an odds ratio of 1.2 is above 10, 1.0, but it is not a strong association because it just exceed 1. An odds ratio of 10 suggests a stronger association. Hence, in the example, you can write this thing since 11, which is much greater than 1. So we can write this thing, the magnitude of the odds ratio suggests a strong association. Now, the odds, this is another note, the odds ratio can be equal to any non-negative number the condition omega 1, I already discussed this thing, omega 1 equal to omega 2, and hence when all cell probabilities are positive, theta equal to 1 corresponds to independence of x and y when theta greater than 1 suggests in row 1 are more likely to have a success than such subject when theta equal this is not sub, this is subject, sorry, this is my mistake, when theta greater than 1 subject in row 1 more likely to have a success than subjects in row 2, that is phi 1 greater than phi 2. Now the relationship between odds ratio and relative risk. So before going to discuss this, I want to define what do you mean by relative risk. A value pi 1 minus pi 2 of fixed size may have greater importance when both pi I are close to 0 or 1 than when they are not. For a study comparing two treatments, on the proportion of subject who die the difference between zero point zero 0.010 and 0.001 and 0.410 and 0.410 and 0.401 are both 0.009. In such cases, the ratio of proportions is also informative. The relative risk is defined to be the ratio pi 1 by pi 2. It can any non-negative real numbers. Relative risk of 1 corresponds to independence. For example, for the proportions just given, the relative risks are zero point zero 0.010, 0.001, which is equal to 10, and 0.410 by 0.401, which is equal to 1.02. Comparing the rows, on the end response, which is called failure category, gives a different relative risk. That is 1 minus pi 1 by 1 minus pi 2. If we consider instead of success failure, that should be 1 minus pi 1 by 1 minus pi 2. Now, the last point, that is what is the relationship between odds ratio and relative risk. So, it is clear that odds ratio is nothing but a relative risk into 1 minus pi 2 by 1 minus pi 1. Their magnitude are similar. Whenever the probability pi I of the outcome of interest is close to 0 for both groups, and when and thus when pi I is small. The odds ratio provides a enough a rough indication of the relative risks. When it is not directly estimable, such as case control study. We can compute the odds ratio. However, since it is determined by conditional distribution, in either direction, when the probability of the outcome of interest is very small, the proportion odds ratio and relative risk takes similar value. So that's all about odds ratio. So please tell me, have you any doubt? Otherwise, I end this stream, and after 10 minutes, I will start with a new stream, that is the new topic, that is the fitting of binomial distribution. Please tell me, have you any queries and questions? Shayok, Nirmallo, please tell me. Otherwise, thank you for watching this video, and please tell me, after 10 minutes I will back with new topic, that is fitting of binomial distribution. Please stay with us and tell me, have you any doubt and queries? If you have any queries, please tell me. Are you hear me? Okay, thank you, Shuman. Okay, I will back after 10 minutes. Okay, so please, this is for you. This is the 10-minute break. Thank you.